guys, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel. Today I have an art journal tutorial for you. It's part of the Napkin series, but I'm also incorporating magazine pics into this. I'm working on a sheet of 9 by 12 Canson mixed media paper that I've taken out of the coiled journal. And I find it easier to do it because I have it on a flat surface. It just works so much easier. This is the first time I've done it. And at the end, I'm just going to put it all back together. Now, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do here, but I wanted to play and I wanted to create. So I decided that I'm going to start by stenciling just with black. And I'm grabbing a few stencils from my stash. This one's called Dendritic. And using them for the very first time or using them in a different way. Now here on this dragonfly one, I'm using this motif right here, and I absolutely love that spiral. You know, if you watch my channel, you know I love spirals. I will definitely be using this motif again on other journal pages. And that's part of the play process. You can experiment, try things out, and discover something new. Here, this one has music, and I'm putting that in. I don't really want it to be a musical theme, but you know, I thought it's a smaller scale. Now, at this point, I don't know how much of this is going to show. I know I'm going to layer colors on here and other things on here, whatever they may be. But it's about playing and experiment and getting to know some of your tools, some of your stencils. And that's the real payoff. I really won because I discovered something that I know I'm going to incorporate into other journal pages. So because I'm stenciling on with black acrylic paint and now I'm getting ready to do color, I want to make sure that that is completely dry. Otherwise it's going to smear. Just adding a few more of these wonderful spirals. It's always a good idea to take some of the motifs and have them partially going off the page. It just looks more pleasing to the eye. And here's the advantage of taking it out of the coil. I can get it right up to the edge here without being interfered with by the coils. Can you tell I'm in love with that spiral? Now, I wanted to use pink, and I was going to grab the pink and the bright aqua, and then at the last minute I grabbed the Naples yellow. Now, all three of these colors tend to be rather opaque, which means they're going to block out a certain amount of whatever's underneath it. And you can see it really dulls the black down. There are other colors that would be more translucent, and you would see more of that black. So if you didn't want to block it out, you would pick a more translucent. And often on the labels, they have that, or just by experimentation and by using your paints, you're going to discover which ones are which. I wanted it a little bit more translucent than what was happening here because I loved all that stenciling down below. So I grabbed a baby wipe and I'm applying it with the baby wipe. And that's getting a thinner layer of paint and it's a little less opaque. This is the Naples Yellow. It is Artist Loft brand. I prefer the Liquitex brand. It is a little bit brighter, a little bit richer color, but I was unable to get it. So I'm having to make do with this paler version for the time being. but not all colors that by the same name, different brands, are the same. So just a heads up about that. Now, yes, right now it looks very blocky, but I know that I'm going to be putting more stenciling on and more layers, and that blockiness isn't going to show as much. This is the stage where it's the beginnings. I want to brighten up some of that pink, make it a little brighter. This is getting a little more pastel. I usually work in very bright colors, so anytime that I'm attempting to work with more pastel colors, it's almost, I have to fight it because while I may like it, it's not my go-to. But it's good to push through and try something different. Challenge yourself. Now I want to, as I said, I'm going to add layers. So I'm grabbing some more of my TCW stencils. Here I'm using white. I want to knock back what was in the background. This also lightens the look of the entire page. All the names of the stencils will be listed in the description box below. They will be linked through my Amazon affiliate store or Nini's Napkins. She now carries 6-inch and 12-inch TCW stencils. If the ones that you want aren't available at Nini's, just contact her. She does bring them in periodically. There's also the TCW Shopify store link below. You can see by putting that white on top, that is what's forward. But I do admit right now I'm missing that stark contrast that we had with the black and the white. A lot of people say, oh, I love the background when you were here, and I love the background when you were here. I wish you would have left it. And yes, I mean, you can stop at any given time and figure out a page and make that work. But I like to play and experiment and discover new things. And the only way of doing that is to not necessarily stop too soon. And I know at the end of the day, I push it too far, there's always gesso. I can block out parts or some of or all of the page and start over. And I've learned a few things. So as I keep layering here, you will notice that a lot of that black stenciling that I have, there's just little bits that are peeking through here and there. And that's one of the nice things about building those layers, because that's really difficult to plan. Now I love those swirls and I wanted to reintroduce them in a little bit more forward technique. And I tried with the pink here. As I'm looking this over, if I wanted it to stand out, what I should have grabbed was maybe my quinacridone magenta, which is brighter and darker, and that would have stood out a little bit more. This was just really applying more pastel on top of pastel, so you didn't get the bang that I was looking for. But I like using the motif. You've got it underneath with the black. Now I have the same thing with the purple. So I take some time and I flip through my napkins and some of my focal images, and I grab this Faces napkin. Again, this is available through Nini's Napkins. And I got this napkin. I chose this napkin because it was black and white and had these faces. And I thought, there's could be some interesting quotes that would go with this, some interesting things I could do with the black and white images. I really like the look of black and white with the colors. So I peeled off the excess layers, and right now I'm just water cutting the faces image, getting rid of the excess napkin. You could use a pair of scissors here. Do what works best for you, what you have the best success doing. For me, I love water cutting. I'm thinking if I put that across the bottom. Now I know when I put the matte medium on, it is going to turn that napkin translucent, and a lot of that color underneath is going to come through on the faces of the napkin. And I'm trying to decide if that's the look that I want to go with. Loving that background. I decide that I don't want the background colors to show through the napkin so much. So I grab my Stabilo All pencil. This is a white one. And I mark the line, and I'm just going to put a coat of white gesso underneath where I'm going to glue the napkin down. What this is going to do is knock all that pattern and color back. I'm not obliterating it. I'm not going stark white underneath, which I could, in which case the faces would be just white. But this is going to knock it back so that a lot of the color and pattern doesn't show. Using my liquid matte medium, putting it underneath and on top. And as expected, you can still see some of that color. You can still see some of that pattern. You can see all those faces. It was at this time that I started searching on Pinterest for quotes that would go with the imagery that I've created now in the focal point. This is looking a little too pastel for me, so I'm adding a little bit of the pink and the colors just to brighten the page. Now that I know where the background is, I want to brighten those things up. And you can always add paint or a wash of paint to lighten and brighten, or what you're doing. Here I'm blocking off some of that yellow. There's a little too much yellow there. And that's making me a little happier. I couldn't really find any quotes that I like, so I then turned to my sentiment packs, and these are available as digital downloads at ninnies.com, at ninniesnapkins.com. And this is my BU pack, and there were several quotes. Beauty begins the moment you are yourself. What makes you different makes you. And I cut out several, and at one time I was going to use multiple quotes on here. And I like the boldness of this font and the size. It seems to work with the imagery that I have on the page, where the quote is actually going to become really part of the focal image. I'm unsure, so here I'm just going to edge my page. I'm using the float acrylic technique. You could use woodless charcoal pencil, your General's charcoal pencils, Stabilo. You could use a makeup sponge and black acrylic paint. There's so many ways that you could achieve a similar effect. Each one has a slightly different look. And often I pick whatever I have out. But I wanted to frame this page to get a better idea to finalize the composition. I often do this too when I don't know which way I want to go. My background seems to be missing something. Right now I'm just thinking of putting that sentiment. I need some contrast. None of my stencils seem to work, so I grab this shelf liner and I'm adding a little bit of the black marks. And right there, it just makes me happy. That little bit of black, just that contrast is so key to a successful page, I think. Then I grab the Sacred Geometry stamp set from Stamperia that I got from ninniesnapkins.com. The link is in the description box. And I used a couple of those motifs. Again, I want to add more interest to that background. It's now that I know where I'm going with this, I just want to put it in. And I'm absolutely in love with this Sacred Geometry stamp set. I love the circles and spheres, and I'm stamping with black acrylic paint. The only thing you need to remember is you need to make sure you wash the stamps, get the acrylic paint off after you stamp with acrylic paint. So this, I'm really happy. There's so many luscious layers. There's a little bit of the black stenciling from the very beginning. There's the colored stenciling. There's so much interest. After playing around with the placement of the sentiment, I'm using my matte medium to glue everything down, putting some underneath and above. And I did think that this was going to be different, but then I thought I need something more. So I went through my images and I was going to put a Julie Nutting doll on there. Then I was going to put a silhouette of a girl on there. And I came across this in my magazine stash. Often I cut out interesting pictures. Now this had the letters right across the middle, and I wanted to use the whole thing. So what I'm doing here is I'm just applying white gesso and I'm whiting out the lettering, and then I'm going to come back in and just paint that out. The little bit on the arms, I'm going to make some flesh tone and I'm going to paint the arms out, and then I'm going to paint the dress white and put back some of the detailing, the black detailing that's there. So don't not pick a magazine picture because there's some words or letters on it, because you can tweak it. When I started art journaling, I did a lot with magazines, but now I don't so much. But it's a great place for focal images. And I have a file folder full of pictures that, for whatever reason, are quirky or interesting, or I thought at some point in time might make a good art journal page. So there I'm painting out the arms, and you can see it's matching pretty good. I do a little bit more shading, and when you look at it, you actually can't tell so much that was there. I toyed with the idea also of painting the entire dress the hot pink, or one of the colors that are in the background. But I chose to keep it white. I figured this girl goes really well with the quote, "What makes you different makes you." Like, she seems to be standing out from the crowd. Here I'm taking the stylus and adding back these black dots. I definitely would have changed the color of the dress if my masking using the gesso and white paint didn't get rid of the lettering behind it enough. So now I'm using my gel matte medium from the Crafter's Workshop. And gluing down the magazine picture. And I want a good coat on top. I think that seals it in, but also if I was going to do some shading, which I do later, that prepares the magazine paper to take that. You could also use clear gesso for that purpose. Grab my General's charcoal pencil and I'm outlining the letters and smudging. And I'm going to do the same with the magazine girl. I want this girl to stand out from the background. I want her to stand out in the crowd. Want some more? I want a little bolder around the edges than what I had before. The General's charcoal pencil is a great way of getting that. Just adding a little bit around these people to make the background. It looks layered. And taking off the tape. And I put that to keep the paint out of the coils and to give me that nice straight edge. There's some close-ups of the background that I had at the beginning, as well as the finished art journal page. Give me a thumbs up, ask me a question, leave me a comment, and until next time, get creative.